One of the biggest discussions in the sports world this summer has been the role of athletes when it comes to speaking up about social issues. LeBron James hasn't hesitated lately to make a statement. On Tuesday, LeBron hosted an event by his LeBron James Family Foundation at Cedar Point Amusement Park and spoke on social responsibility of everyone, saying, quote, "I believe in order for us to ultimately be as great as we can be as a nation, that all of us have to go back into our communities and lend our hand. It starts brick by brick. It starts person by person, family by family, kid by kid." Stephen A., what do you make of King James' comments there?
Well, as usual, I applaud it. LeBron James is the quintessential global iconic superstar in this world. I mean, as a basketball player, he's the best in the world, but he's also right up there as a person as well. He's incredibly conscientious. I remember I had the pleasure of going to Akron University and speaking to kids that he's been taking care of, you know, kids that are in position to receive scholarships. I mean, this guy is taking care of thousands of kids and donating millions of dollars of his own money through his foundation, obviously, as well, not to mention his time, energy, and effort. So let's be clear about something. He practices what he preaches in that regard. And when he says what he says, it also implies the importance of a personal touch. It implies the importance of not operating from 50,000 feet away from a situation, just looking down upon individuals that need your assistance and trying to help from arm's distance. This guy is in the trenches and doing everything that he can to bring attention to issues that are hurting our society and some of the things that need to be done in order to make things better. And so he basically is the walking epitome of the kind of things that Jim Brown has spoken about, the kind of things that Muhammad Ali used to speak about, God rest of athletes from the 60s and beyond who had a social conscience and don't mind putting their muscle and their face and their fingerprints on issue where it's required. And it sets a shining example. Now, what really highlights it on this particular day is we heard from Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, who, Molly, you know, and Max, you know I love me some Aaron Rodgers. He's a bad man as a football player. But when he spoke the other day about the NFL, although he was right in what he said, Max was accurate in pointing out how Aaron Rodgers, certainly being the superstar quarterback for the #1 sports league in America, is in a position to make a difference with his voice. But I'll take it a step further. Even though there are problems that obviously exist in minority communities throughout this nation, I would remind everybody that even during the civil rights era, when black folks were marching and we were fighting for civil rights, I should say them as opposed to we, because even though I'm black, I wasn't even born until 1967. So I don't want to take credit for what my ancestors did. My love and adulation goes to them. But I will say that it's important to recognize that the success that the black community has gained in its evolution from pre-civil rights days to where we are now, despite all of our problems, that had a lot to do as well with white individuals who were willing to speak out in support of some of the incendiary things that were taking place against the black community and other minority communities in this nation. And so when you hear Aaron Rodgers speak, you must ask yourself, well, why haven't you spoken out? What do you mean that the NFL has dissuaded folks from speaking out? Martellus and you know, Martellus Bennett and his brother, you know, they didn't have a problem speaking out. I don't recall the NFL punishing them. And so we have to look at it from that perspective and recognize that while we appreciate what Aaron Rodgers had to say, we have an even greater appreciation for what LeBron James has done and does continue to do. And we hope that not just Aaron Rodgers, but a Tom Brady, but a Peyton Manning and others wouldn't just leave it to the Cam Newtons and the Russell Wilsons of the world to speak out on these issues, because you're only as strong as a nation. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you're just going to allow people to be abused, allow people to be demonized and diminished and what have you, how far are we going to go as a society? It takes us all. And I appreciate LeBron James saying what he said, because he's absolutely right, as usual.
I want to get to LeBron James in a second. I want to start with what you just said, Stephen A. That's absolutely right. As Martin Luther King said, a threat to justice anywhere, is
you got it.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There it is.
Everywhere.
And Martin Luther King also used to say that even if there's an oppressed group and that he wants to support, even if that group says it's okay, we got this, that's not good enough for him. If there is an injustice somewhere, everyone should stand up against it. And especially in the NFL, this harkens back to Richard Sherman's comments from a couple weeks ago. Look, this isn't the white players' issue necessarily, et cetera. Should they speak up? And Richard Sherman always has interesting things to say, but if I understood his intention correctly, I think he's wrong there. I think in a league where, in a country where everyone's living together, that is the responsibility, particularly in the NBA, NFL, diverse leagues, it's the responsibility of all the players, if their fellow players, if their teammates, if their competitors, if their peers are experiencing injustice, are speaking out against it, to at least, as you said, Stephen, they don't speak out if you haven't educated yourself, if you don't know what you're talking about, but to at least familiarize yourself with the issue, sensitize yourself to it, and if you're down for the struggle, go ahead, speak out. I think that's important. And Aaron Rodgers, Stephen A., I took what he said as a warming to that idea. Maybe he's not all the way there, but I took it as an encouraging sign. LeBron James. People who still hate on LeBron James, I can't get past this. What do you want this guy to do? First, as a player, right? We've seen for him come out of high school as the most valued prospect ever and then somehow surpassed the hype. As a player, choking away the finals the way he did in an epic collapse, and then coming back in the last two finals that we've seen, in the last two finals period, to play like a combination of Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and elevate his team and compete when he had no team around him, and then when he got a team around him, an epic comeback and a win. So it's just great to see his development as a player. As a leader, this is tremendous, because what's the issue that constantly comes up when, for example, Charles Barkley makes a comment about personal responsibility? And I will go back to the point that frequently these issues, both points are valid, the idea of societal responsibility on the one hand, institutional responsibility, and personal responsibility on the other. And people with a rightward bent seem to say that, hey, forget about, don't focus on societal and institutional responsibility, focus on personal responsibility. And to the left, they say, why are you focusing on personal responsibility when it's institutional and societal? And what I will love about what LeBron James did here is he's already spoken out publicly and so has credibility against institutional and societal talking about institutional and societal responsibility, talking about those kind of things publicly, now gives him credibility. It gives him equity with people when he focuses on personal responsibility, when he says something about how it's up to everyone involved to take personal responsibility and behave accordingly. That resonates differently because it doesn't feel like it's coming from one side or other of the political spectrum. It doesn't seem as though he has some kind of ideological agenda, because he's already spoken up against the other. So now he can talk about people taking personal responsibility, and it resonates with everyone. And LeBron James, the player, and LeBron James, the leader, is an amazing thing to see. I don't know how you can hate on this guy.
Well, first of all, he's the closest thing to perfection, I believe, that we've seen from a professional superstar athlete, maybe ever. I mean, when you consider his level of production on the court, his level of commitment to excellence, combined with the fact that what he is off the court in terms of how he's conducted himself, it just doesn't get closer to flawlessness as far as I'm concerned. LeBron James was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was 17 years of age. The expectations were there. He accomplished them, he conquered them, he exceeded them, and it cannot be denied. And so when we look at it from that perspective and then see the commitment to his body, to his mind, to winning, to producing results, he is the quintessential professional, iconic superstar athlete. It simply cannot be denied. But I also think that as a black person, it's important for me to say that it's very important what he said, because there are certain parts there where he clearly was talking about all of us. Well, guess what? That includes the black community. That includes us stepping up and not looking for others to blame when there are things that we can do to alleviate our own problems. Now, clearly, that doesn't mean that we're all at fault and we're always doing something wrong, anything like that. Black folks in this nation have been victims. So have Native Americans and others. We understand this. But the flip side to it is that nobody's going to pull out a helping hand in most situations and help you along the way. You've got to do it yourself. And to hear that kind of message emanating from a superstar like LeBron James is incredibly important.
And
because somebody who is successful and has pulled it off, he's reminding you on how to get it done.
And
I think that's important.
Because this is not the first time we hear from him. You know, sometimes it's the first thing you hear is personal responsibility, and people scratch their heads and they wonder about the intentions. But the fact that he's already on the record talking about the other stuff, talking about the institutional response. Now when he talks about, hey, these are choices you make, people have to be aware of what they're doing and take responsibility for it, it resonates differently. Because I don't know how to put it, because you know he's down for the struggle. And the best athlete in the world, that's not always the case, at least not publicly so.
Yep. No, you certainly have to applaud him and using his platform to pay it forward, and he continues to, and leading the rest of the NBA.
He pays it forward.
Certainly.
He pays it forward, Molly. You're right.
When we come back, Jerry Jones is one step closer to getting his ticket into the Hall of Fame. Our Super Bowl champ, Damian Woody, will join us for that conversation. Does Jerry deserve to be an HOFer? We get into it.